In this video, we're going to look at how selection statements are used in Python programs. So a selection statement is a statement in the code that allows the computer program to make a decision. And we use these with these things called Boolean conditions to decide which route the program should go down. So we're going to be looking at Boolean conditions, we're going to be looking at how we use selection statements in code, and then we're going to be looking at how you can use different forms of selection statements, the selection statement in Python being the if statement. So first of all, let's think about these Boolean conditions. As it says here, a Boolean condition is a test, and it's a test that can have one of two results. It can only have one of these two results, and those results are true or false. That's it. So when we're going to code these Boolean conditions, we will usually use comparison operators. So comparison operators allow us to compare two items very simply. So first of all, we're going to say, are these items the same? Now, if we want to test that, we use a double equals sign. Notice it's a double equals sign, not one equals sign, two equal signs. We also use this symbol, exclamation mark equals, to mean not equal to. So you can think of the exclamation mark as meaning not. If we want to check if something's greater than, we have the greater than symbol, just like we use in maths. Less than, greater than or equal to, notice it's greater than and then the equals sign with no gap between them. Less than sign looks like an L slightly knocked over on its side, and then we've got a wonky L with an equal straight after for less than or equal to. And if we can also test if, so for example, this test here is checking, are these two numbers the same? Well, 5 does equal 5, so the result of that would be true. 5 not equal to 5, that's saying, is 5 not equal to 5? The result of that is false. This means is 6 less than 4? Well, the result of that is obviously false. And 4 is greater than or equal to 4. The result of that is true because 4 does equal 4. 4 is greater than 4. The result of that is false because 4 is not bigger than 4. Giraffe equals giraffe, that's saying, are these two strings the same? Remember, anything in quotation speech marks like this is a string of text. So we're saying, is this piece of text on the left equal to the piece of text on the right? And in this case they are. This here is saying, are these two pieces of text the same? Notice that the second one's got a lowercase g, so in that case the two pieces of text are not the same, so that's false. And in this case, is giraffe not equal to hippo? Absolutely, a giraffe is not a hippo equal to a hippo, so that test is going to be true. Now, when you code in selection statements in Python, we use the keyword if, and we start the selection statement off with the keyword if. We then have a Boolean condition, so this is one of these tests like the ones we've just looked at that can either be true or false. We then follow that with a colon. And you notice there's no other code on that line. And then we have a statement, one or more statements after the if statement. So we have the if line, and then we've got this do this line. So what will happen is the code on the line that says do this will be run if and only if that Boolean condition is true. Notice how the code on that in the do this statement is indented by one tab stop. That's very, very important. So just press the tab button once and then write your code. And as it says here, if the Boolean condition is true, then we run the code do this. Now, when Boolean condition is false, we don't run the code that says do this. Now we can look at this little flowchart here. What's going to happen is we have this condition we spoke about. This is a test here, and if the condition is true, we carry on and we run the code that that's indented. If the condition is false, we bypass the code that's indented and we just move on to the next stage. Now, here's some little tips when you're writing your code. So we always start if statements with the keyword if. We then want a condition that compares two pieces of data or two variables, or we can compare, say, user input to a piece of data. We then want a colon. We then indent the next line, and the line runs if the test is true. So you've got some tasks I'd like you to have a go at doing. that use if statements. So the first step one is going to be to make a Word document, as it says here. So just go into Word online. Remember, if you haven't got Word installed on your computer, you can go to the school website. You click on the About menu, go down to where it says Webmail, and it will take you to log you into office.com. Once you're logged into office.com, you've got a bunch of icons on the left-hand side of the screen. You can click the Word icon, and it will take you straight into Microsoft Word. What you then want to do is you want to create a file, save this into your computer science Python folder. If you haven't got a computer science Python folder, you need to create one right now. That'll be created on your OneDrive, and for this task you want to name that Word document after the assignment we're doing. Now what you're going to do is when you write your programs, I'd like you to copy and paste the code from the program into the evidence document. As it says here, please don't take screenshots because they can be very difficult to read if they're not large enough. They can also be quite blurry depending on what kind of device they were taking on. Remember to include a heading for each program so I know which one's which. And when you've got to the very end of this assignment, you can hand that in and we can check it. So anyway, program number one, you're going to be writing a simple program that uses a selection statement with a single outcome. So as it says here, you're going to need to log into Replit first of all. And once you've done that, you want to click on this link at the bottom of the screen to replit.it at Mrs. Medway 31 selection with one outcome. So you just click on the hyperlink at the bottom of the slide down there. That will take you over to Mrs. Medway's Replit. And you then click on the fork button. If you remember that makes a copy of that program, puts it in your area, and then you can try and write your program. Now, I'm going to quickly skip over the next page because if you get stuck, there is an example solution right here. Now, as it says, please only use that solution if you are really stuck. So do your best to try and write the program without using the solution. But if you need to, you can compare the code you've written to this code right here, and that is a working solution for that program number one. Now, once you've done program number one, copy the code, put it in your evidence document. You can then get on to looking selection with two outcomes. So here's an example of a piece of code that we want it to take one of two paths. So it's like rather than just having one choice, we're giving it two choices. And you notice the code in red is slightly different. And what it's different because we've used this else clause. So the first part of the if statement up here, if num1 is greater than num2, colon, print num1 is bigger. That's just like the first example. In this situation, what we want it to do is if that first test, if number 1 is not bigger than number 2, for example, if they were the same or if number 2 was bigger, we want it to do the second clause, which is down here. num2. And for those of you that are really thinking ahead, you'll have noticed there's a flaw in this program because if number 1 and number 2 are both the same, then this first statement is true. But obviously in that situation, number 2 is not bigger, so we would need to modify our program. But we'll be looking at how to do that in shortly. So here is a flowchart that shows that situation, yeah. And those of you that remember the first flowchart will remember that when we had the test, the condition, we went down the page and we ran some code. And if the condition was false, we simply skipped that test. Well, in this case, we're not skipping we're skipping this piece of code on the left, but we're going to run the else code on the right hand side. So there's a piece of code in this kind of branch down here that bypasses if condition is false. Now here's some tips when you code in this. So again, we start with an if statement, we have a condition, we then have a colon at the end of that line. On the next line, we then write the code that we want to run if the condition is true, and we indent it. We then have the keyword else. Now notice the else is not indented. The E of the else lines up with the I of the if. That's really important. We've then got the colon, and then on the line after that, we indent the code again. And this is the code that we're going to run if this first test is false. So if the number is not 42, in this case, if the number equals 42, it's going to write out this first line, you've discovered the meaning of life. If the number is not equal to 42, it's going to say, sorry, you failed to discover the meaning of life. So you've got a task to have a go at doing right now, lads. The program, as it says here, is called program 2. Program 2 selection with 2 outcomes. You've got the link here that will take you to Replit, so you can then fork that program into your own area. Once you've completed it, I'd like you to copy the code and put it in your evidence document. And as it says here, you've got a solution on the next page, but again, please only use that if you really get stuck. And if you're looking at this solution, just remember the code on the right of the screen here. This is the first part of the code, and on the left-hand corner, I've got the second part of the code. So you can see lines 30 or 36 is slightly truncated, but you've got 37 and on. Now on to program number 3. This is what we do if we've got 3 or more outcomes. And the way we do this is we use this rather weirdly worded elif statement. It's short for else if. So you'll notice we've got the first clause here. If number 1 is bigger than number 2, colon, we print the first item out, elif, and then we have another test. So this second test runs, if the first test is false, we then run the second one. If the second test is true, we do this line here that says print str number 2 is bigger, else we say print the numbers are the same. So in that case, the first 2 tests are both false, so we've got to do something different. Now, while we're on this page, we're just going to look at this str thing here. Str means turn this thing into a string. So if you remember, we have numbers and we have strings, and strings simply means text. Now, a number is not to a computer is not the same as a piece of text. So if we want to use it as though it were a piece of text, what we have to do is tell the computer to convert the number into its text form. And we do that by using the word str. So this is what we call a function. And when we use str, we have some brackets, just conventional parentheses. And inside those, we put the thing that we want to get converted into a string. So in this case, this is saying, take number 1, turn it into a string. And then once it's turned into a string, I can use this plus sign, which means concatenate. In other words, join this first string to is bigger. And down here, we're doing a similar kind of thing. We're taking number 2, turning it into a string, and then we're joining it onto the text saying is bigger. So we can actually use that. If you miss out str, you'll get an error, and it will talk to you about data type conversion errors. So coding tips: if statement, we want the keyword if, we want a condition, we want a colon, indent the next line, which we're going to run if the first condition is true, keyword elif, second condition, colon, indent the next line, and this is the line of code we run if the second condition is true, and then we have the final line of code. We have the keyword else with a colon afterwards, and then the line of code that we're going to run if both of the conditions are false. Now here's a link that will take you to Replit, giving you the third program. And what I would like you to do, please, is fork that program, try and write a solution for it. And again, if you get stuck on that, you've got some help on this screen here. You've got a little working solution right there. I hope that helps you. If you do get stuck, remember, watch this video. You can always pause it. You can look at the code, and hopefully that will help you successfully complete those tasks. Now, because you've got working solutions, I'm going to expect you all to produce programs for this task, because if you really get stuck, what you could, of course, do is copy the code, put it into Replit, and then hand that in. But do try and write the code yourself, because computer programming is one of these things that you learn by doing. Once you finish your code, remember, what I need you to do is hand that evidence document into the assignment, which you'll find on Microsoft Teams.